Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. If you are new around here, you get a special welcome. My name is Jody, I love watches, and if you enjoy this video, I'd love it if you would subscribe to the channel by hitting the big button with the word subscribe on it. And if you are new here, stick around till the end and I'll tell you what on earth this means on my t-shirt. Today it's another price-based roundup, the kind of video that I really enjoy making. It's my pick for the top 20 watches you can buy if you have $500 to spend. 500 bucks is a decent amount of money, so it's all thrillers and no fillers on today's list. I've concentrated mainly on big brand watches because they tend to be readily available and always in stock, but there are a few micros on today's list. I'll leave links to all 20 watches in the order that I show them in the description of the video. Use these links as your starting point, but of course, shop around, find the best deal you can. For your local region, your local currency, alright, let's get on with it. Now, one brand that will not be featuring on the list today is my own brand, Erebus watches. It would be completely immoral of me to include Erebus on a list like this. Or to tell you that, for example, your $500 budget, you could have any Erebus we sell, including the Erebus Ascent with a stunning aventurine mineral dial featuring a high-beat Japanese automatic movement, or the rugged and reliable Erebus Origin GMT in premium flavour with a beautiful bicolour ceramic bezel and more lume than you could possibly need in your daily wear watch. Both watches and plenty of others under 500. Absolutely will not be appearing on today's list and definitely won't be the first link in the description because I've got my credibility to think about, right? Moving on to the official number one entry on today's list, one of the cheaper watches on the list and one of 4 Seikos on the list. They really are so dominant at this end of the market. It's the 5KX GMT. This is a really good watch. Classic case profile, classic dial and handset, super reliable, in-house automatic caliber, good bracelet, and available in a number of different colours from sensible black like this one to not so sensible orange. And of course it has the 4th GMT hand as a bit of an added bonus. The price, $280 brand new, and like I said, you can take your pick from a range of colours. The only real negative here is that it's mineral crystal, it's not scratch-proof sapphire crystal covering the dial, but there's plenty of money left over to upgrade it to sapphire at some point in the future if you do scratch the hard legs. A real all-rounder that doesn't get close to the budget ceiling today. Unlike watch number 2, which definitely does, one of 3 Hamiltons on the list today, it's the Khaki King, one of the very best $500 watches on the market, end of. And a watch that I have included in numerous similar roundups. It's just such a cracking all-rounder. It's a historic American brand, but now owned by the Swatch Group, so it's Swiss made. Great movement, classic styling, good size for most people at 40mm in diameter with 20mm lug width. It's not outstanding in any particular area, and it certainly does not look or feel like you're wearing a $2 watch, if you know what I mean, but it's just such a solid example of a $500 watch that if you are in the market at this price point, you should absolutely have a look at one. Water resistance is okay at 50 meters and there's no anti-reflective treatment on the sapphire crystal, but apart from that, apart from those 2 small considerations, it's a gem. What about something totally different? What about a watch from a brand that has been making watches for 100 years and Flieger's traditional German-style pilot's watches for 80 years, but you can still buy one for well under today's budget? The brand is Laco, and you can take your pick from anything from their basic pilot range, rather direct marketing there. Now, admittedly, the movements are somewhat basic, being Miyota 8000 series, but you just can't argue with the value for money and the provenance for the price. You can get one on a leather strap or a bracelet. There are a couple of different sizes to choose from, and 2 classic Flieger dial patterns, so Type A and Type B, available in both of those sizes. Laco have even been playing around with colour in recent years as well. Don't expect pink or purple, but you can at least have grey, blue and PVD black in addition to standard black. They may be a bit basic, but they're supposed to be, and they're all the better for it. Alright, I said there were going to be some micro brands on the list today, and here is the first of them. It's a watch that is usually in stock rather than usually out of stock. It's the Straton Speciale Chronograph. I highly rate these 1970s TV cased watches. Straton have been making them for years now, and they've been getting more and more adventurous with the colour schemes, moving away from traditional 70s browns and yellows into more modern teals and purples. They feature a lovely piece of sapphire crystal and Seiko's super reliable Mecha quartz movement. Now the RRP is $499, but there's usually a 10% discount available for signing up to a newsletter or something similar. It's a fairly big and chunky watch, but the Mecha quartz version is actually slimmer and therefore more wearable than the automatic, as well as being much cheaper. A left field choice, but also a good choice. Alright, another affordable classic that I have featured on the channel a number of times before is the Glycine Combat Sub. These punch well above their weight because they feature Swiss-made movements rather than the more affordable Japanese stuff that you often find under 500. They are full size at 42mm, but they wear very well because they are slim because those movements are slim. They're also available in a bunch of different colours and dial patterns, so you've got plenty to choose from. Prices on these start from as little as $300 if you're flexible about which version you go for. I'd suggest you look at Ashford.com, a grey market retailer, so Ashford covers the warranties themselves, but the prices are so cheap it's well worth going grey. I've been going grey myself for years now. I hope this list will show you there are some awesome watches with plenty of history and great backstories to them that are all eminently affordable. The one with the best backstory of all, though, is the Bulova Lunar Pilot. The Bulova Lunar Pilot has genuine lunar provenance, with Captain Dave Scott wearing his Bulova on the moon during an Apollo mission in the early 1970s. The crisp black and white design is as striking as it is legible, and the high frequency, high accuracy quartz chronograph movement measures down to 1/100th of a second. That is quite a party piece. It's one of the best value watches you can buy anywhere, coming in at well under 500 on Amazon and eBay, but there's a catch. It's a bit of a whopper and it wears big and flat. I've tried to get Cinderella's slipper to fit, but I failed, just like the rest of the ugly sisters. If you've got the wrist for it though, or you just like a watch with heaps of presents, it's a no-brainer this one, either as a daily or part of an affordable collection. Alright, let's look at Seiko number 2 then, the Presage Irish Coffee. This is my pick of the Seiko Presage range, but really, you can pick any of them. They're all relatively similar in terms of specs and prices. I've personally owned, I think 5 up to this point, and I've reviewed at least 10, and I've settled on the Irish Coffee though because I think it's the right size for this style of watch, coming in at just over 39mm. I found some of the other Presages can be a little bit too big or a little bit too small. This one, very much Goldilocks porridge of the Presage range. And would you look at that dial? It's not super obvious at first, but there's some beautiful detailing and patterning in there. The movement is nothing special though, and the crystal is once again mineral rather than sapphire, but it's just so pretty and it looks much classier than it should do for $360 US. At number 8, it's one of the biggest affordable watches of the last 10 years and a 100% lock on a list like this one. It's the Tissot PRX, the watch that brought the integrated bracelet look to the masses. Cracking brand, again part of the Swatch Group umbrella these days. Tissot always only too happy to tell you they've been making watches since 1853. That means you get access to ETA movements, both quartz and mechanicals, and thanks to the sheer economies of scale, you get some amazing prices on these as well. There are 2 different sizes, 35mm and 40mm. You can even get a PRX with a digital display if you want to, but not many people want to be honest. Prices, you're looking at under 300 for a quartz in either size, and we're getting into our 10% margin to get into an auto. Do bear in mind therefore you're paying quite a lot for the auto upgrade because it's the same watch. It's the same case, the same crown, the same crystal, etc. The quartz therefore is very good value. Let's slip in another micro then at number 9, a classically styled, well-priced diver by Laurier. Their Neptune, now in its 4th iteration, I believe. These are bang on the budget today at $499. Now, with this style of watch, you get overtly retro looks, but with mostly modern materials, the one exception being acrylic crystal. Now, that is really old school and deliberately so. It will scratch, it will scuff, but the scratches can be polished out, and they even give you what you need to polish them out as part of the package. You do get a beautifully warm look from that acrylic crystal though, and it's more authentic, so on balance, it's worth it. I was impressed when I looked at the Neptune earlier on this year. Very well resolved, very neat and tidy, and with a combination of specifications that you don't get from any of the big boys. At number 10, it's another classic Hamilton, the Khaki Field Mechanical. Again, there are a number of different colour versions of this one available. They're all pretty much the same thing. 38mm manual wind Swiss-made movement with an 80-hour power reserve. Neat as a pin. NATO straps or leather straps, or add the strap of your choice. Sapphire crystal and a wee bit of loom. Don't worry about the size, it is period correct, and a double pass NATO always tends to bulk that up a bit anyway. These are available in quartz for around 300 plus, but the manual wind is the one you really want, 450. Again, Joma Shop is probably your best bet for the best price. Alright, second half of the list then, and we started the first half with a Seiko, so we should start the second half with another Seiko, specifically the Seiko Arnie. So called because Mr. Schwarzenegger wore one of the originals in a lot of his movies back in the 1980s. Seiko reissued this one around 6 or 7 years ago now, and it's been a big seller for them since then. It's an Ani Digi, so analog and digital displays on the same dial, very 1980s. As such, you get a bunch of different functions that you don't normally get from an analog only watch, such as stopwatch, countdown, timer, alarm, backlight, etc. And it's solar, so you don't even need to replace the battery. The sun or your overhead light will keep it charged in perpetuity. Now, it is a large watch at 44mm in diameter, but Seiko are the masters of making large watches wear like small watches. So don't worry, the Arnie will fit you, even if you don't quite have the same level of musculature as the man himself. At number 12, it's another micro brand watch well worthy of its place on a list like this, shoulder to shoulder with much larger and much more historic brands. It's the Metric by Brew. Brew are a small New York-based brand that has been getting quite a bit of global attention recently thanks to watches just like this. Watches that are quirky, colourful, fun, unique, and still don't cost more than $500. Again, like the Straton, this watch utilises a Seiko Mecha quartz movement, it has sapphire crystal, and styling that combines the best of the 1970s with the best of the 2020s. Some micro brands can be a bit of a money pit if you try and sell them on, but there's always strong demand for these brews. The resale value as such is excellent. At 13, it's another Bulova. Indeed, it's another Bulova retro reissue, specifically their Oceanographer, aka the Devil Diver. Again, like the Laco, the movement here is nothing special. It's a Miyota 8000 series, but it's just such a charming big watch with a cushion case and unique tubular applied indices held onto the dial by little claw settings, almost like the diamonds on a ring. A couple of different sizes are available and a number of different dial colours are available, including the most ridiculously orange shade of orange that I've ever come across. There's also a GMT version, but that's over budget today. Talking of budget, you should be able to pick one up for around $400 US. It's not a new watch anymore, so prices have fallen. And don't ever pay RRP for a Bulova or any other Citizen Group product. Their RRPs are ridiculously optimistic. You should be aiming to get one for 50% of the official retail price. Next up, it's another small brand doing big things, this time out of New Zealand. It's Draken Watches and their Tugela Diver. Again, like Straton, there's always 10% off these things for signing up to a newsletter, which takes the price down to $400 US. For that, you get a chunky, unique looking dive watch with a Seiko movement, sapphire crystal, heaps of loom, including on the crown, which is one of these touches that you only ever see from small companies. Cracking packaging, including a bonus NATO strap, so much to like here, great design, great value, far better indeed than you get from a Seiko. Okay, we've had a little bit of everything so far. We've had dive watches, dress watches, chronographs and GMTs, But what about an LED watch from a big Swiss brand? It's a personal hobby horse of mine. It's the Hamilton PSR. Another watch with a great backstory, this being one of the very first ever commercially available LED watches and costing more than a Rolex at the time of its release. The Pulsar original was also a James Bond watch, for goodness sakes. The current version is really well made, it's very wearable, and I think at least it's very, very cool. You are max budget for one of these though, $550 US, even from a grey market retailer. I think they're worth it though, very, very different from anything else on the list today. Talking of different from anything else on the list today, what about a Swiss-made chronograph for under $400? If that tickles your fancy, why not check out the Tissot Seastar chronograph? Again, Joe my shop will help you out with this one. A bunch of different colours starting from just over $300 to just over $400, depending on whether you want a bracelet or not. Now, you're not getting a mechanical Swiss chronograph for that price, I'm afraid, but quartz is a solid option, and the Seastar is generally pretty solid as a watch. Big and chunky at 43 mils and plenty of water resistance at 300 meters, Tissot have a great reputation for making solid watches, and this is yet another one of them. Alright, the final Seiko on today's list, and it's one of their older models as well. I tend to find you get better value these days from an older model Seiko than you do from a new model Seiko. It's a turtle. It's called the King Turtle because, unlike all the other Seikos on today's list, this one features premium upgrades including sapphire crystal covering the dial, and the dial itself looks decidedly nicer than most other turtle dials. The base watch is a great watch though, very comfortable, and again it wears smaller than the on-paper dimensions suggest it would. Plus, it's the same solid 4-hour movement that has featured in 3 other watches on the list today. They are super reliable. Again, well under $500 for one of these. In fact, I wouldn't pay more than $400 for one of these. But if you want something a bit bigger, Japanese, dive style, this one fits the bill nicely. The King Turtle sits in stark contrast to the next watch on today's list, the HMS by Baltic. Baltic are a small French brand. You notice I didn't call them a micro there. I think they're now pushing into the legacy micro category because they have showrooms in 3 cities around the world. Not sure how many other micros can claim that particular accolade. Like the Laurier Neptune from earlier on, the Baltic HMS series are unashamedly retro with that Miyota 8000 series movement again, but with acrylic crystal just like the Laurier. These are smaller, they're available in 2 different sizes, a 38.5 and a 36, as well as a bunch of different colours. No matter which one you pick, you won't be paying more than $450 US for it. They're all hand assembled in France and definitely have that retro appeal, but with a movement that will keep good time and not need serviced for a long time. The penultimate watch on the list today is another Tissot. One that was released maybe 6 or 7 years ago now, the appropriately named Gentleman. And again, because it's a Swatch Group product, there are a bunch of different dial colours available and a choice of quartz or automatic movements. You are busting your budget for this one though, folks. If you want the auto, they're coming in just under 600, so you're going to have to dig around the back of the sofa for an extra 20 on top of our already stretched 10% margin. It's worth it though if you want to wear this one as a daily. It's a really good looking, classically styled watch from a well-regarded Swiss company. I will say though, it's a little bit on the large side, especially with those male end links, and I would suggest you need a 7.5-inch wrist or even larger to pull this one off comfortably. Like the Lunar Pilot though, it's a great watch if you've got the wrist for it. And finally, how on earth could I compile a list of affordable watches without including at least one Casio on it? And there's one Casio that comes in under budget today that you should definitely have a look at. It's the Metal Square G-Shock. Technically, it's the GMW-B5000. Now, this may be a G-Shock, but you probably don't want to wallop it because it's just so pretty. It's far too pretty to beat up. It's full of tech though, multi-band 6, so it picks up the atomic clock signal if you live in an appropriate place. Bluetooth if you don't, it can link to your phone and you can use the various features on the watch through the app rather than pressing the buttons if you don't want to. It's solar, so it will never need a battery change. It has heaps of water resistance and all the usual features such as countdown timers, alarms, etc, etc. And the price on these fits comfortably under today's budget. Admittedly though, that's 10 times the price of the basic square G-Shock. They're connected, but they're not the same thing. I freely admit it. This one makes a great chunky digital daily, but you probably don't want to hit it with an ice hockey stick. So there you have it. As I said, I love making lists like this. I love digging through my library of old reviews, old archival footage, and compiling the very best of the best. And a list like today proves once again, you don't have to spend a fortune if you don't want to get a great watch on your wrist. You may not have liked all of them, but I'm sure you liked a few of them. And if I missed your favourite, leave me a comment, let me know what it is. Well done for making it all the way to the end of the video. If you don't quite have 500 bucks, then check out some of these even more affordable price-based roundups. Thanks for watching this one. I will see you again in the next one.